people act as if it's real. But then,
Mm.
you could say that about anybody's religious beliefs. Is what they're believing real? Is it fake? Are they just wasting their time worshiping something, doing these rituals? I don't know. But it's not. I'm actually interested in stories of magic and historical stories of magic,
Hmm.
but from what I've seen, it doesn't seem to be something that is real.
Hmm.
Spoiler alert.
So would you? So if witchcraft was real, would you practice it then?
No, no, I would not.
I
No,
mean, why not? You know, you never know. It's
well,
like,
I think the people who are no, genuinely, I think the people who are attracted to that sort of thing have a will to power. They
Mm.
have some sort of attraction to controlling things and people that should not be within their control.
Mm.
And for me, I don't feel that way. I don't want to control people or events or the world. I'm more focused about controlling myself. I think that's where
Wow.
um,
Hmm.
my focus comes in.
I see that. I always thought like Chris Angel. I just remember his whole thing was black magic, and I don't know if that was just his character. That's why he's brilliant, right? That's why he was a brilliant magician. It's like
Well,
he really played it amazingly. Hmm.
he I look at it as like a presentation. It's not a presentation I would do. I think it's a very controversial presentation.
Mm.
um because people really do have mixed beliefs over that stuff. But he's certainly been successful with it, so
Hmm.
good for him.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm not really interested in that style of presentation, to be quite honest.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it sounds like each magician has their own uniqueness that they bring to the table. You know what I mean? And their own style, and they get that from what? Let's take examples of any magicians. Who are your favorite magicians? Right? How did they get to the point
Oh
they were at?
man.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I can name some if you'd like me to and
Mm-hmm.
talk about them. But like for example, one magician who really has developed a lot, and I really like a lot. I've liked him since I was young, but David Blaine, and
Mm-hmm.
I think he's an
Yeah, legend.
amazing
Mm-hmm.
magician. When he first started on TV, I didn't know anything about magic. I was quite young, and I thought he was amazing back then. But as I got older in magic, I thought like, wow, he really wasn't that good back then. But he's gotten like really good in between the time of his first TV show in like 1998 to now. He's certainly become like way, way, way better and more
Yeah.
interesting. So, and I think that's what we all try to do, but he's certainly chosen his own path. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
really feeling that for myself as well. It's like, how do I want to present this to people? How do I want to connect with people? And that's been in a really big change in my life in the last, I would say the last 2-3 years, really. Since, the last 2-3 years.
That's amazing. I love David Blaine. He's really cool, and um, some of his stunts are they? Would you consider them magic? Like when he's holding balloons and flying in the air. That was his most recent one. That was incredible. Or when he's trapping
So
himself underwater. That's like
they,
physical feats, right? Is that magic?
they had a documentary. I don't know if you saw it on
I didn't get to
a
see it.
gentleman called
Mm-hmm.
Alex Hanold,
Mm-hmm.
who the documentary was from National Geographic called Free Solo, and it's about
Wow.
him climbing up a mountain, I believe out in California, without any ropes. He's just doing it, free soloing it with his hands, and they go over the challenge, and he's doing it, and it's real. Like if he makes a slip, he's falling, and I mean, I don't even think he's going to make it out paralyzed. I think he's going to die.
Mm-hmm.
It's really high.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he could survive. And the documentary, they show some of his friends who die doing this, and he's doing it, and it is real. But it also has an element of magic to it, where you are seeing something impossible, but it is in front of you. But I don't think magic needs to have something that's deceptive in it, and I don't think it needs to have something that is supernatural in it. At the same time, I think somebody can do something that other people consider to be impossible, and that to be magic without anything deceptive or supernatural about it. I think you can just do stuff that is really incredible and amazing and real, and it can be magic.
I hear you. Well, can you tell me a bit more? Like, what? I'm sure you must have thought about this. Like, what is magic?
Um, oh man, for everybody it's different. Uh, I think it's a way of connecting with the the mysteries of the universe and our place in it. And I think we're connecting with it from a place of wonder and awe. And I think as magicians, we try to create experiences that allow people to get into that state. But we also just do tricks as well. Sometimes, sometimes a fun card trick is just a fun card trick. Sometimes you just want to
Yeah.
find the aces in the deck,
Mm-hmm. It's amazing
But
how
I
much
think
of a variety of it is. Yeah,
no,
exactly.
but I
It's a
think
whole
part of
range.
like being a human, it's
Mm-hmm.
like let's say a great movie that you love.
Mm,
I can name, for example, the Lord of the Rings movies that I love. I really do love them.
mm-hmm.
They do deal with more profound topics, but there's also there's a wide range of emotions. There's humor, there's comedy, so you get to feel a lot of different things, and I think that's what life is like, and I think that's what people are like. So I don't just like to focus on you know this idea of wonder and enchantment and awe. It's like, well, sometimes we have to laugh, and sometimes things are funny, or sometimes sad, or whatever, and we just express these human emotions and connect with people while we are performing. Uh, our theatrical magic in the venue that that makes itself available to us, whether that's a theater, whether that's a street, whether that is wherever it is, a Zoom room.
Do you, and do you think AI could one day replicate this experience on like themselves? Could they
Man,
become magicians, or maybe could magicians use AI to create new ideas for themselves?
I'm already experiencing it. Like, I look at some of these AI images. I don't know if you've seen, all these crazy AI images that look really surreal, photorealistic, some of them. But for me, when I'm looking at this stuff, I have this sensation of like of remembering this stuff from a dream. And I don't know, for me it's like almost having a weird dream, like mystical, magical experience looking at this stuff. You're like, maybe I remembered this in another world, like maybe this is like the dream world coming to life. It's really bizarre, it's surreal. In terms of AI creating magic tricks, um uh, I don't know. I don't know what AI is capable of. I think it's pretty difficult. I don't know if many magicians can create magic tricks. Creating magic is really hard. You have to. It's a very sensitive thing. You are constantly looking at the people that you're performing for, and sort of shifting what you're doing so that it connects with them. And you can also take a completely different approach, which is to not take the people you're performing for into the equation and just have a cookie cutter mold that you're just everything fits in the same mold and you're just pumping it out. And there's magicians who perform like that. They're just like robots. They're just doing their show on repeat. It's like a broken record. It's just like they're on autopilot. But I think when you do that stuff, you're not really connecting with people, and and you can design something that connects with
Mm-hmm.
people. And I'll use music as an example,
Right.
because right now I'm really thinking about music in shows. And what, usually when I'm performing for people, I've always stayed away from certain types of music because I'm very much into interacting with my audiences. And I find what happens with music is you are locked into a series of emotions that, it's like once you hit that play button on the music takes the audience through an emotional journey, and you can't pause it. You can't leave any like room for breathing or interaction with the audience, because you're sort of like locked into the music. And that means that you have to hit certain points, like different climaxes and routines, different revelations, for example, turning a card over, etc., at certain moments, because you are working in tune with the music. Whereas I, the energy in the room might not be right. So maybe, what you're doing is going well with the music, but the energy in the room is wrong. And so you can adjust because you're locked into the music. So I've been really thinking about working with live music, and working with live musicians that I trust, who are really sensitive to what's going on in the room and can change the music and the rhythm of the music, and maybe even the mood of the music, depending on something is, uh, a funny moment pops up, or something is more drawn out, and they can sort of time the music with the magic and with what's going on. So that's how I would explain it. It's very complicated, and I'm probably getting everyone confused, but
Yeah, it's so sensitive. That's the thing about it too. It's like, I get what you're trying to say. It's like a magical experience, right? I don't know. I'm describing it to music, describing it to films. That helped me understand it a bit. It's like, it's it's you as a magician. You're in control of the emotions of the audience, right? And you making them laugh, and then you surprise
look,
them.
I'll put it
Yeah.
like this. Have you ever told a joke that was completely inappropriate, and then you realize it, you catch yourself mid sentence, and you're like, okay, the room's not ready for this, or like the mood is wrong. I'm going to shut up.
Yes.
Right?
Basically all the time.
We
Yes.
okay. So that's the thing. We have awareness, and we can catch ourselves, and we can
Hmm.
feel that energy in the room. And when you're sort of on autopilot, you're just powering through. So like, instead of realizing, wow, I should shut up now, you just continue on and on and on. And it's like, okay, well, this isn't connecting with anybody. Like, this is horrible. So, you
Hmm.
know, I try to come from it from a place of really understanding how people are. And I like to bring people into the shows, because I find they're more interesting than anything else you could present. People love to see people react. That's why reality TV show is so popular and interesting. We love to see regular people in situations, and like, we don't know how they're going to react. Like, that's part of the fun. We want to see like how they look at things, how they react, how
Mm.
they, you
Hmm.
know, how they interact with this crazy situation.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Wow. And
It feels
go
like
side.
it feels like it's a type of experience that is telegraphed to the viewer. That's kind of like what I understand from when you want to watch reality TV, because basically this is, you can't live the experience yourself, so you want to watch someone else live that experience and have a genuine reaction, because that could actually be your reaction. You
Yeah,
know
and
how
it proves we're really good at picking up whether somebody is giving a fake reaction and they're like a stooge and they're in on it, or whether it's a real person reacting genuinely. And that's why we as magicians oftentimes bring people up on stage to see magic, because we want somebody to be able to see it up close. The whole audience usually can't come up close because there's too many people, but we bring a few people who can see it up close, but they can also react to it in the
Oh.
moment, and then the
Mhm.
whole audience gets to see them reacting for real.
Mhm.
And that those emotions transmit to the audience, because like they can feel like, this is real, this is amazing, this is
Mhm.
funny. And yeah, that is transmitted. They're like
Eh,
transmitters.
is it fair to compare it a bit to like pranks? And because with pranks and stuff, you're doing something, and you don't imagine, how you would react in that situation if someone were to prank you, right? Exactly. And so, to watch their
Yeah.
reaction is satisfying for you, right? Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's interesting. If you've ever seen these prank videos where they're filming in the same spot for a long time, and they'll have
Mm-hmm.
like a man hidden in like he'll be hidden in like a costume or something outside of a store. It looks like a Darth Vader costume or something like
Mm-hmm.
that, and they think it's a display. And so what will be interesting is you'll oftentimes notice that there's people in the background just hanging out at the mall watching. They become in on the joke because they've seen it like one or two times, and then they're watching to see how the people are reacting, and then
Mm.
they'll you have that tension, they're laughing at the situation because they become in on the joke. So yeah, I think that's totally a part of it. I think it's totally a part of it.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And I'm curious about what about like hypnosis and that kind? We haven't talked about that. Have you ever thought about that, or tried
Yeah,
doing
I
something
thought
like
about it a
that?
lot.
Mm-hmm.
I before I got into doing card tricks, and manipulating cards, I was very much into hypnosis, and
Mm-hmm.
I would practice by doing self hypnosis. I would practice on my family and friends, hypnotizing them, and I was quite serious about it. I actually really considered at a point of my life becoming a professional hypnotist. Um, so yeah, I know quite a bit about it. I can anything you want to know, I can do my best to answer.
Oh gosh, well we have a hypnotist expert. Yeah, just I mean, how did um, what was it like for you doing it with your family and such? Yeah, exactly. Like, how did that happen? Tell us about hypnosis.
People love it. I think most people have never experienced it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really just bringing your mind into a different state. And most people don't get to experience that. And that's why people get so excited the first time they practice meditation or something like that, because it brings them in a different state and they're able to sort of disconnect from the stresses and reality of the world for a few minutes. And it just helps. I actually do think it has biochemical reactions in your body to remove some stress hormones. And I think there's studies that show that as well, but it certainly makes a difference. And it allows you to have more control. Like once you start getting into the place where you can control your thoughts, you realize that maybe you can control other things as well. And so, okay, if you can control your thoughts and not focus on certain things, or change your mind about certain things, maybe you can start to change little things in your life as well. Maybe you can change some of your habits because you're able to change your mind. And then if you change some of your habits, maybe you can change some of your behaviors. And then piece by piece, even though it starts very small with a thought, you can slowly transform your life, and you can do things that you did not think were possible before. You can find focus to put into different passions that you could not find that focus before, and you can really remove stress that um, you might have removed or suppressed in some other unhealthy way. People, pick up smoking, they pick up drinking, they do all these other things to suppress the stress that they're dealing with in their daily life. Whereas this is something that's happening in the mind, and you can really get control of your mind. And when you can get control of your mind, you can slowly claw back control of your life. And so I love anything to do with getting control of your mind, and
Mm-hmm.
intentionally changing your thoughts so that your thoughts become more useful for you, in your life instead of harmful for you.
Mm-hmm. Oh wow, I see. And could you share like some stories of you doing hypnosis to your family or to yourself or to other people? Yeah, I'm curious as to like more examples of
Yeah,
it.
so
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you the first time I was hypnotized. I was part of a youth group, and they said, "We're going to bring somebody in, and you're going to have an experience." And I was like, "Okay, like I'll try this." And I closed my eyes, and this person, and they didn't present it as hypnosis. They presented it as some sort of meditation or something, but it really was hypnosis. And I had this really profound sensation of seeing this vision of me going off into this vision, this land that we had built in my imagination. It was a beautiful thing. I was in the in the hills, and there was a rainbow, and it was just like it was a really beautiful scene. And then we got into a part where I was suggested that I was able to float through this, that I was able to fly through this, and I really felt this incredible sensation of being able to fly. And
Wow.
when I opened my eyes, it's like, okay, well, I'm back to reality. But there was something really real about that while I was going through it in my mind. And um, I thought, like, like when you realize that this can happen in your mind, you say, wow, this is like a whole world of entertainment. Instead of just watching movies or reading books, like you can create these stories that take place in your imagination. So that's what I would start to do. I would
Wow.
create little stories and scenarios, and I would, and little adventures really, and bring my friends and family through them. And, uh,
And would you be like in control of like the whole story of what's going on, and you'd be going scene by scene, maybe, and you have complete control of it, or was
yeah,
it more of like
I was basically
reckless and
like
yeah?
an audiobook.
Okay. So
Um,
would you
no,
describe
I
it maybe
was
similar to lucid dreaming?
yeah. That's something that I'm very interested in right now. I'm really experimenting on how to do this, but to leave people more freedom. And I'm experimenting with some projects right now on how to do this. Um, and I don't know if it's ever really been done before, but I think it's interesting. I have no idea what the result is going to be, but my idea, my concept is to have interactive adventures that people can have in their own imagination, but they're guided through certain points. But then there's also incredible freedom for them to develop those worlds and those adventures. But I'm really working on, like, how do I put these prompts in so that I'm still in control of the story. So it's not just like, them closing their eyes and imagining whatever they want. I'm like trying to figure out, like, how do I put these prompts in? How do I speak at different intervals to bring them to the next scene? So yeah, I'm very interested in that stuff, and I don't know. It's really fun, I think.
Mm-hmm. And it can be transformative too. I mean, with mindful meditation, and guided meditation, these things you can really tell a before and after. Like people are calmer, they're more in the moment, they're happier. Like you know, and it's true, and it happens, right? And that's in a short few minutes. And let's say you can have that experience, but for some other kind of emotion, right? I mean, I've seen people who like used to smoke cigarettes, let's say, a lot, and then all of a sudden they go through hypnotherapy and then they stop smoking. What's that about?
Um, I think we have stories, and we live by these stories that are not useful for us. And so people have, let's say, uh, let's say somebody who has a story of, oh, I'm too stupid, I can't do good in school, so I'm not going to take any course and stuff, I'm just going to work, specific jobs. Or I can't stop smoking, oh, I can't stop drinking, oh, well, my father or my mother was an alcoholic, so I have the alcoholic gene, I can't control it, I have an illness. I'm sick. I can't stop. And it's like, well, wait a second. Of course you can stop. Of course you can stop. You can stop or start anything. But people get into these stories and they build up these stories that they either can or can't do something. And these are stories that are really destructive to their lives in a lot of ways. So it's like, okay, how do we identify what stories we have in our lives that we're telling ourselves? Are these stories serving us a beneficial purpose? Are they improving our life or hurting our life? Okay, well, if they're improving our life, great, let's keep those stories. But if the stories that we're keeping are hurting us, why are we holding on to them? Maybe it's time to get rid of them and replace it with a different story. And so, you know, that is truly what I believe is happening. I don't think that there's a switch going off in hypnotism. I think I think in general, people have a story and they're following that story. So if people create a story in their mind that the hypnotist can transform their mind and transform their life, then they will willfully
Wow.
put their life in the hands of the hypnotist. And now
Mm-hmm.
they will believe, wow, the hypnotist has the authority and power to change me, and heal, whatever condition I have, whatever, problem I have with my thinking, and because they believe that, it works. Whereas if somebody said, well, the hypnotist won't work, he can't help me, okay, well, then he's not going to help you. Um, and so I think that is what is happening. People believe that things can help them, or people believe that things can't help them, and depending on what they believe, it will work or it will not work. The hypnotist themselves and the hypnotism isn't necessary, but if somebody believes it's necessary, okay, great, use it. It's a tool. But you could also just have a rational conversation with somebody and get them to replace certain ideas with better ideas. And once you are able to erase certain thoughts that don't work. And this is what they do, by the way, when they reprogram people who have been brainwashed by cults. You know, they're not like doing something magical to get them into a cult or out of a cult. All they're doing is they're programming new thought patterns into people. And I think we can do this just through regular conversation. And sometimes people have it through experience. Like
Could you give us
if
an
you've had,
example, Mahdi? Sorry about the cult before going on further. Yeah, I'm curious. Like, what
yeah.
is an
So,
example of a new thought, like a thinking process? Let's say we're gonna indoctrinate Saeed. How would that go? Yeah.
all right. So let's begin.
I'll gladly be the guinea pig.
Um, well, how it usually works is they would identify a need that this person has in their life that's not being fulfilled in some other way, and
Mm,
something that they've been trying to fulfill, but they've been unsuccessful at fulfilling. And so this person has been trying to do whatever it is in their life. Maybe it's building, it depends. At different ages, people are, and different uh, places in their life, people are trying to do different stuff. For example, uh, Saeed, how old are you?
I am 25.
So at 25, okay, so this is what's usually happening at 25. 25 is an age where young men and women are trying to develop intimate relations with other people to see, to really just learn about other people, learn about themselves, but really develop a connection that is beyond the connection that they're used to experiencing in their own family lives and beyond the friendships that they have. The people really at this age are searching for something more. Maybe there is a way to connect with somebody at a deeper level. So this would be something that they target. And it's like, okay, how can we give somebody this experience of having a really deep connection? And maybe that connection is not with an intimate romantic partner. Maybe it is, but maybe it is with some sort of a mentor or a guru that um, that really shows you a new way of living or a plan for your life that you may have not seen before. And then you and then you are able to fulfill that need for intimacy
Mm.
through your connection with them. So this is, and like this is the
Mahdi, would you be
short
able to
version of it.
what's it called?
Hypnotize.
Hypnotize me through this online, like here, on air?
You can do it, you can do it through recording, you can do it through
I'm down to be
phone
the guinea
calls.
pig if you wanna
Well,
test it out on
actually,
you.
what I have, if anybody, so what I have, I have this up on YouTube. I've recently made a series of guided meditations. I'm
Mm.
very careful. They're not hypnotism sessions, but they're guided meditations, and they're about 20 minutes long. But they are along the same lines as hypnotism,
Mm.
and you really go through a journey through your imagination to gain a revelation and insight that you might not have had before. And so I've done this with a few people in person and through recordings. Now I've put it up on YouTube so anybody can experience it. But the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive so far. People are really enjoying interacting with it and going through that journey. So yeah, it certainly works on recording.
Oh wow. That's
But
amazing.
I will say, like for example, I've done um, because I love to experience guided meditations and hypnotism sessions myself from at home sometimes when like it's easy for me to do it, right? And I will say that sometimes I can go into a deeper state of meditation, and other times I can't. Whatever is happening, like maybe my body isn't comfortable, like I'm just sitting down or laying down in the wrong way, or I have something else popping up in my mind, like some, oh, I have to do this, like that's just distracting me. So just because you do it doesn't mean it's going to work the same every single time. Like it's just like eating a meal. Like depending on how hungry you are, or what you've eaten before, or what you have to do, you might not enjoy a meal in the same way, even if you get the food into your body. You can
Mm-hmm.
have a vastly different experience.
And
Mm-hmm.
what is the level of awareness like when you're in that deep state?
You're
Because you
fully
said you can
aware.
also get even okay. So even
You're
when you
full.
go deeper, because you said you can go even deeper than other people. How how much in control are you? Like how much do you understand that this is not reality? Do you?
You always understand what's happening. Unless you have and I have to be careful, unless you have some sort of mental illness, or
Mm-hmm.
because there are people who you should not do this with. There are people who have different they have problems distinguishing reality from fantasy. There's people who have some sort of delusions in their regular life. So these people, it's not really appropriate with, because they might have some trouble. But a regular person will absolutely understand that what is happening, and they'll absolutely understand what's happening in the real world and what's happening in their mind with their eyes
Mm-hmm.
closed.
I see.
It's just like when you're watching a movie, like
Okay.
you're watching, Jurassic Park. You don't actually believe there's dinosaurs in a little box in your room. You're watching a movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're not in danger.
Well, I'm imagining having like a small Jurassic Park in my like instead of that ant farm that you used to have as a kid, you have a Jurassic Park world just like on the windowsill.
Hmm.
No, you
I,
you know you know the difference.
I love how you compared movies to hypnosis and stories too. I think that's incredible. I've never made that connection before, but it's so true that movies are just stories, right? Told in a way to give you a certain point of view, and in some kind of sense, they are maybe powerful because they can give you a different point of view, right? If you have a story in your head and you see the story in a movie and it really impacts you, you can change your stories, and in that
Of
sense, movies can
course.
hypnotize you. Wow.
And we imagine the way we imagine. The thing is, one of the rules, and it's something I'm very interested in. I don't know if it's an actual rule, but I've heard it described as a rule. It was described as a rule by a man who really developed a lot of these ideas. His name was Emile Coué, And he had a system of auto suggestion that probably is world famous. He would say, every day in every way, I am getting better and better. And people would repeat this in front of the mirror. But what he really taught was that we are controlled by our imagination. And he would do this experiment with people where he would take a wooden board that was not that wide. It was about, imagine a wooden plank about the width of your shoulders, like a diving board, okay? Like that, like a diving board at a swimming pool, about
Yeah.
that width. Now imagine that just placed on the floor in front of you in your room, like you had a
Mhm.
wooden plank just on the floor, and I
Mhm.
told you, okay, step on the plank and walk from one side of the plank to the other. You'd say, okay, and you'd get on it, and it would not be hard for you to balance, and you just
Mhm.
walk on the plank from one side of the room to the other, no problem. You wouldn't fall off and break your head on the floor. Like nothing would happen. You would be able to walk, no problem.
Mhm.
And then he said, well, what if we took that very same plank and we put it on top of two towers that were high, high up in the air, and you have no safety net? Same exact plank. What happens when you get up there? All of a sudden, you start fixating on your death. You start fixating on this idea, okay, I can't walk across. There's nothing holding me. I'm going to fall. I'm going to, there's no way I can make this. You make it impossible in your mind, even though um, you can do it because you've just done it in your own room. And this is really interesting to me because it's like, and the idea was that your imagination overpowers your will. And that is something really interesting to me because, like, if we can imagine that we can't do something, we can also reprogram our imagination so that we can do it. And I think visualization is a tool that I'm
Wow.
personally very interested in.
Mhm.
But you can really get yourself to the point where you are visualizing different actions, different scenarios, and um, creating very in-depth visualizations where you are succeeding and creating those pathways to success, and you are seeing the whole thing from beginning to end. And I think it's something that oftentimes really separates people who are successful from people who are unsuccessful. I think people who are successful oftentimes really are able to get a clear vision of what they want to do, and they're very, very can clearly see the pathway of how to get there. And that is done through their imagination and obviously through planning and stuff that comes from the imagination. But they're able to
Uh-huh.
see it. They're able to see it, and it's like, okay, well, if you can't see it, then how can you make a plan? How can you actually
Mhm.
do it? You know,
Right. They don't even teach you this stuff at school, right? But if you say it's the key to success, I mean, they should be teaching you this stuff. It's so interesting. Like I hear it all the time from athletes, especially athletes from all fields, but especially like the top performing athletes. I've had some on the pod, but like I've heard like Mike Tyson, for example, like he went through hypnosis, uh,
yeah. And
and
his
he became
so
a champ.
his trainer his
Hmm.
trainer uh oh, what was his trainer's name when he was
I'm not
young?
sure. Hmm.
Mike Tyson. Uh, hold on, Mike Tyson trainer.
Hey, Chad GPT. What's Mike Tyson's
Customato,
trend?
Customato. That was his
Customato.
trainer when he was young.
Oh
And
wow.
Customato really was a believer in Emil Coué. He was a believer in positive affirmation. So he would get Mike Tyson to repeat these things every single day since he was a kid. He basically brainwashed Mike Tyson to saying to himself every day, I'm the most ferocious, I'm the greatest fighter who will ever live. I'm and just pounding this nonstop propaganda into his head until he really, really believed it. And when you believe you're the best ever, nobody can touch you. Nobody has ever, come close to anything that you're doing. Like, imagine that mindset, what it does for your performance, what it does for your confidence, but also does to your discipline. Because it's like, okay, I'm the best ever. It's no problem for me to train 16 hours a day, like I'm the best, like I'm the greatest who's ever lived. Yeah. And then when I walk
Yeah.
into the ring, I'm going to knock this guy's head off. Like he's nothing. He's nobody. Um,
Wow.
so it's interesting. You can really
Mm-hmm.
change, you can reprogram yourself, but it does take a lot of work. There's a fine line between reprogramming your mind so that you are more effective and just you becoming delusional, saying you're the best ever but not putting any of the work into it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like if you say that, like, oh, I'm the greatest at this, I'm the greatest at this, and you never work at any of it, you're not going to go very far. So
Mm-hmm. The truth is, the greatest, you have to be like the greatest, which is work really, really hard. If the greatest, you know what I mean? That's what it takes to be the greatest. It's not more like you need to be at that
but
level, you know?
But that's a great thing about sports as well, because you have
Mm-hmm.
that feedback immediately when you are
Right.
doing your training and your rehearsals. You can see right away, is this peak level performance, or did you have a pitiful day in the gym? Like you can see it right away, right? And so it's very motivating when you can get that feedback and you can constantly push against it.
Mm-hmm. Wow. um, what was can you tell me a bit about what was like your first magical experience?
Oh man. Um, I don't know. I mean, it wasn't really good. I saw a really bad magician, local magician. Um, was not impressed, but I
In
was
the United
interested because I was
States?
interested.
Wha-
No, it was
Yeah,
in Canada. It
you
was
were in
here in
Canada. Mm-hmm.
Toronto,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just not impressed. But I thought, like, oh, this is cool. I can ask this guy about some magic and stuff. But it was
Mm-hmm.
not amazing. The first really magical experience I ever had
Mm-hmm.
was in 2010. And I had known some magicians by then. By 2010, I'm doing some magic, not professionally, but I'm doing some card routines and stuff. And I go to this magic convention down in California, and called MagicCon. And there's this magician there who I had heard about, but I didn't. I had seen some videos of him, but I wasn't impressed by the videos. His name is Juan Tamariz. He's from Spain, an older magician now. He just turned 80. So he's like about 68 at that time, you know. And so he at night, at time, everybody's sort of sessioning at the convention, just hanging out, showing each other card tricks and stuff. And he sits down at a table, and a crowd starts forming around him. And I join the crowd, and there's maybe like 100 magicians surrounding him, and I'm like right there. And for the next 3 hours, I just saw him do the most amazing card tricks that I had ever seen in my life. Like everything was just super amazing, super magical. And I was just like complete in wonder. And I remember going to bed that night saying to myself, like, wow, I'm going to become a professional magician. This is the kind of stuff that I want to be able to do with, this is what I want to do with my life. So that's like the first really magical experience I had with magic. Of course, I had like
It's a
little
beautiful story.
experiences of
Yeah.
watching magic and feeling like fooled and amazed, but this was like wow, like really powerful for me.
I see. And in that one moment, you were like, that's what started, your new journey upon magic.
Like a new commitment, just like wow, I'm gonna do this like for real. I'm not just gonna
Mm-hmm.
do it for fun anymore. I'm gonna
Is
figure
that when
out.
you started bombarding yourself with propaganda that you're the greatest, you're the most ferocious magician in the world, and and then you ended up on doing a magic trick in front of Sean Penn.
Yeah, Penn
Well, here's
Teller.
the
Yeah, Sean
thing.
Penn.
Oh my,
Here's the thing though, and it's I don't know if this is delusional, but I think it's real. When you start studying something like magic and you're working on different stuff, there are certain routines and techniques that you work on that you can do better than anybody that's ever been alive has done. Like there's certain things that I can say with fairly high confidence that nobody has ever thought about it as much as me or worked on this specific trick or the specific idea or technique as me. Like there's certain things that I know um, I am the best at in the world, and I'm not trying to say that to boast. It's just like when you do something enough times. Um, Especially because magic is such a small art and we sort of all know the other magicians, we can really see what other people are doing. And but I think it's like that in anything. If you choose one thing to do in your life and you like hyper focus on a small niche within it, you can take that to places that nobody has ever taken it before.
Right.
And it's really interesting.
Wow.
So yeah, you really do know, like, I am the best in the world at this. Like, I maybe I'm not the best and like, the full thing, like the most well-rounded thing, but in certain areas, you're very highly competent and probably the best that's ever lived. And I mean, it is
Wow.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I
I
hear what you're
agree with
saying.
that point, and
Mm-hmm.
I I try to follow a certain philosophy of basically just remove all of your effort from the things that are not priorities in your life, and focus on the one thing that you are really good at. Sorry, focus on two things. In my life, I'm trying to prioritize two things: doing my work, working hard, and then working hard on my passion. And those two are two separate things because they can be used together. Because if you work hard in your job, you can support your passion, and then that passion can become your job, and everything else has to, in my opinion, take it has to fall back a bit. You can still enjoy your time with your friends. You can still sometimes treat yourself, provide yourself with luxuries, but in the end, if you do it too repetitively, you're just wasting your time and you're not focusing on the actual thing that is
Wow.
gonna make you successful.
Mhm.
Focus.
So what I try to do nowadays is I try to be very intentional with my time and how I approach things. So I will literally schedule out every hour of my day, even if part of the schedule is just time for me to screw around and relax, and whatever. I will schedule that in, and because like at certain times, like I'm uh, like for example, in an hour from now, I'm going to start something, and once I start that, my phone is going to be off, different distractions are going to be completely turned off, and for 1 hour I'm going to focus on that one specific thing. And I find when I do this over and over and over again, you will slowly progress and have a huge difference in your ability will increase and you'll make a lot of progress. What's also interesting is like some days you will just not have the motivation or the focus. You'll sit down for that hour, and like let's say you're trying to write something. Let's say you're working on a book or something, and you're just like, okay, I'm going to focus for 1 hour writing this chapter. I'm certain there's some days you're going to sit down and only a sentence is going to come out, and it's going to come out as garbage. It's like that's what it is. But it's like, okay, well, the next day is going to be better, and at least you put in that consistent focus, that consistent effort, without screwing around and checking your phone every 5 minutes and, oh, let me take this call. Like that we're masters of escaping our true will. And so like for me, I like to schedule what I really want to do. Like what I do, and I do this usually at the end of the week on a Sunday, is I'll spend a few minutes just planning out my next week. And I'll say, okay, well, what do I want to get accomplished in this week? Okay, how am I going to schedule that? And I make my schedule for the week. And I really do try to follow it because I know that when I'm making my schedule, I'm making it out of the clearest state of mind and my best mind possible. Whereas, by the time I get to Thursday and Friday at 4 p.m., 5 p.m., I'm gonna make a bad decision. Like, I just know it. I'm not going to. If I allow myself the ability to not follow my schedule, I will just end up wasting the time. And
Right,
so I
exactly.
become like a slave to my schedule because it's like it's what I
Mm,
actually want to do.
mm-hmm,
Whereas what I feel like doing in the moment is not me. Like, that's not a good
mm-hmm,
part of me. That's a part of me that's like just wants to distract myself and you know just ruin, like, just waste my energy on garbage,
mm-hmm. So that you
waste
really
my energy
need to
watching
commit.
YouTube videos and whatever.
Unless it's this podcast, yeah, exactly. Then you can watch it all day long. um,
Exactly, watch all the episodes one after the other, put it on loop.
um,
That's gonna be a long watch for over
450.
450
Yeah,
episodes.
And
so yeah,
if you want the
exactly.
podcast, if you really want to, for the people who are listening right now, there's an incredible amount of wisdom and wealth and knowledge contained within them. So if you really want to absorb it and really help these guys out with the YouTube algorithm, play the podcast for about 8 hours every night while you're sleeping, and you will absorb hypnotically all the information inside the podcast, and they'll explode on the internet.
Bro, that is fucking
Man,
play it for it's instead of what, like, people, how people
yeah.
sleep to like whale noises or white noise or
White
something like that. It's
noise,
like,
yeah,
no,
exactly.
this is like put A to the show for 8 hours straight, listen to that stuff and get educated.
And get educated and
Guys,
inspired. Yeah,
you
exactly.
heard it. You heard it from the best. You heard it from the best. Mahdi the magician has taught us so much. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the reality is anymore. It's like everything is confusing. Everything, we're all self-improving. We have to listen, watch this podcast, get your mind blown, escape reality, try to absorb the information so you understand how to self-improve. And Mahdi, thank you so much for coming on to the
Thank you,
podcast. This
Mahdi,
has
for your
been
Thank
time
you,
an
today.
amazing
guys.
It was
conversation.
epic. That's our
Thank
time
you,
for
guys.
today. Yeah, I really
That's our
appreciate you.
time. And now we escape the Matrix. Hello.
Escape.
Okay.
Incredible.